Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Alien girl left for dead, saved by a human. The sky was still burning when he stumbled across her. Whole towers had fallen like brittle bones, smoldering heaps that bled sparks into the ash-thick air. He had come here scavenging. If he was honest, though scavenging sounded far better than poking through ruins like a nosy raccoon. The ground was cracked, blackened, and so hot in places that his boots hissed when he stepped wrong. He coughed against the dust and muttered to himself that this was exactly the kind of thing people did in bad horror movies, right before something bit their head off. And then he saw her. She lay half-covered by steel beams, her hair streaked with ash, her limbs bent awkwardly. At first, he thought she was human, fragile, broken, bleeding. But then he noticed her ears. Long, elegant, curving back like delicate blades. They were wrong, impossible, beautiful in a way that made him blink. He crouched beside her, checked her pulse with clumsy fingers, and nearly jumped when he felt a faint thump-thump of life. "Great," he muttered. "Of all the things to find in a smoking apocalypse, I get an alien elf. Perfect. Just what I needed." Her eyelids fluttered but didn't open. He glanced at the beam pinning her down. It was twisted metal, hot enough to burn skin, but lighter than it looked. Grunting and cursing and complaining about how he should have skipped arm day his entire life, he managed to heave it aside. She let out a sharp breath when freed, a sound so human it made him ache a little. He lifted her, awkwardly, because she was taller than she looked and far less cooperative than a sack of grain, and staggered through the smoke. "You know," he told her limp-form, "most people just wave when they want to ride. But no, you had to go with the dramatic, buried alive in wreckage routine. Very stylish. 10 out of 10. Her head lolled against his shoulder. For a second, he thought he saw her lips twitch, but maybe that was just wishful thinking. The ruins were no place to stop. The air was sour with chemical tang, and every gust of wind carried glowing motes that stung his skin. He needed shelter. An old subway entrance yawned nearby, its stairwell cracked, but passable. Muttering about how he was definitely getting tetanus and radiation poisoning, and probably a curse for good measure, he carried her inside. The tunnels were damp and echoing, littered with the skeletons of advertisements for things no one would buy again. He lowered her onto a bench, tore open his pack, and started fumbling through supplies. A half-empty water flask, a medkit that had seen better centuries, and an energy bar so hard it might qualify as a weapon. Not ideal, but he worked with what he had. When he pressed the water to her lips, she stirred. Her eyes blinked open, eyes brighter than they had any right to be, catching the dim light and reflecting it back at him. She stared, dazed, and then whispered in a voice rough as broken glass, "Why save me?" He blinked, tilted his head, and shrugged. "Because no one else would, and because I'm terrible at minding my own business. Bad habit." Her gaze searched his face as though looking for the trick, the lie, the hidden motive. He just smiled, awkward and lopsided, because he had no better answer than that. "You're human," she breathed, the word like an accusation. "Last I checked." He tore open the energy bar with his teeth. "Although I'm open to surprises. For all I know, I've been secretly alien all along, and these ears are just defective." He wiggled his very normal, very round ears for emphasis. "See, useless. Yours, though, now those are something. Stylish. Bet you get amazing radio reception." She frowned weakly, and he felt absurdly proud that he'd annoyed her into showing some life. He broke off a piece of the bar and offered it, but she turned her head away. "Suit yourself," he said, chewing with exaggerated crunching noises. "I'll just sit here eating this brick of despair while you starve out of principle. Perfect teamwork." She closed her eyes again, exhausted, and he sighed, leaning back against the cold wall. Outside, the distant rumble of engines rolled through the ruins. He froze, listening. Whoever had leveled this place wasn't finished. "Well," he muttered, "looks like we've got company. And here I thought tonight was going to be quiet. Just me, some rubble, and a comatose alien girl. Maybe a raccoon if I got lucky." He looked at her again, at the way her chest rose and fell, shallow but steady. Something twisted in his gut. He hadn't asked for this. He didn't even know her name. But there was no way he was leaving her. "Guess it's you and me now," he whispered. "And let's be honest, you definitely got the short end of this deal. I don't come with a manual." She didn't answer, of course, but he felt the weight of her presence beside him all the same, like a tether keeping him from drifting away in the ruinous dark. And as the tunnels shook with the approach of whoever hunted the broken city above, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Saving her had been the dumbest, most reckless decision of his life, and he would do it again. He spent most of the night watching her breathe, not because he was some noble guardian, but because he was convinced she might suddenly stop, and then he'd be left explaining to himself why he carried a half-dead alien girl into an abandoned subway for nothing. Every time her chest rose, he felt relieved. Every time it paused a fraction too long, he panicked and shoved the water flask at her lips again. By dawn, if you could call the faint gray light filtering through cracks in the ceiling dawn, he was exhausted. She woke with a sharp inhale, eyes snapping open as if she'd been yanked out of a nightmare. He almost dropped the half-melted ration bar he'd been chewing. "Easy," he said, raising both hands like she was about to attack. "I promise, I didn't kidnap you." "Well, technically I did, but it was a rescue kind of kidnapping. The friendly sort." Her ears twitched, flattening slightly, which was honestly unnerving. She sat up slowly, grimacing, then scanned the tunnel walls like she was expecting ghosts. "Where am I?" she asked. Her voice cracked but stronger than last night. "Luxury suite, downtown ruins," he replied. "We've got benches, flickering lights, and a killer rat population. Real 5-star. She blinked at him, unimpressed. "This is primitive." "Yeah, well, beggars, choosers, you know the deal." He offered her another piece of the ration bar. "Breakfast of champions. Unless you're allergic to compressed soy dust and despair." She stared at the food, then at him, then finally took it, nibbling like she wasn't sure it was safe. Her nose wrinkled instantly. "You eat this by choice." "Not by choice. By poor life decisions. There's a difference." Despite herself, she almost smiled, and he felt absurdly victorious. They sat in silence for a while, the hum of broken neon, somewhere down the tunnel filling the air. He studied her in the dim glow. Pale skin streaked with grime, long ears that twitched at every drip of water, eyes that seemed too bright for the ruined world around them. She was alien, no doubt, but she looked so human it was unnerving. "Got a name?" he asked eventually. She hesitated, then said, "Leora." "Leora," he repeated, rolling it around his tongue like it might bite him. "Sounds fancy. I'm nobody important." She tilted her head, ears shifting. "Everyone says that when they are hiding something." He laughed. "Trust me, the only thing I'm hiding is how bad my cooking is. That and the fact that I once lost a fight to a vending machine. Deadliest opponent I've ever faced." Her brow furrowed. "A vending machine? Don't worry about it. Ancient Earth predator. Extinct now, probably." Her confusion deepened, and he couldn't help grinning. If nothing else, watching her try to process his nonsense almost made the apocalypse tolerable. But her amusement faded quickly. Her gaze lowered, and her shoulders hunched. "They left me," she whispered. "My people. They left me to die." He leaned back against the wall, chewing on his lip. He wasn't good at comforting speeches. He was more of a sarcasm and stubbornness kind of guy. Still, seeing her crumple like that made something twist in his chest. "Yeah, well," he said finally, "their loss. You've got ears that can probably pick up free Wi-Fi from orbit. Who wouldn't want that around?" Her head jerked up, startled. Then she let out a sound, half a laugh, half a choke. It was rough and fragile, but it was something. "You make light of everything," she said. "Better than making heavy of it." He shot back. "I've tried that. Gets exhausting real quick." The smile vanished as quickly as it came. She pressed a hand to her side, wincing. He noticed the faint glow beneath her skin, barely visible veins pulsing with light, dimming and brightening in irregular patterns. "Is that normal?" he asked carefully, gesturing at her side. She followed his gaze and stiffened. "It is nothing." "Uh-huh, because glowing veins are totally standard issue where I'm from." Her silence was sharp. He wanted to push, But something about the look in her eyes stopped him. Instead, he let it go for now. The rumble of engines overhead broke the moment. Both of them froze, listening to the muffled growl reverberating through the concrete. He cursed under his breath. "They're still here," she whispered. "Yeah," he muttered, stuffing supplies back into his pack. "Guess they didn't get the memo about us being unavailable." He slung the pack over his shoulder, then offered her his hand. "Come on. If they find us here, we're toast. And not the good kind. More like the burnt-to-a-crisp kind." She hesitated, staring at his hand like it was some strange artifact. Finally, she took it, her grip surprisingly firm despite her injuries. "Stay close," he said. "These tunnels go on forever. Easy to get lost. And trust me, you do not want to run into the rats alone. They unionized." Her ears flicked in disbelief. "Unionized?" "Yep. Demanded better working conditions and more cheese. Ruthless negotiators." This time, she actually laughed, a real, unguarded laugh that echoed strangely in the tunnel. It startled both of them, but he grinned, pulling her along. For the first time since he found her, she didn't look like someone who'd been left to die. She looked alive. And as the engines grew louder above, he realized he had no idea what kind of storm he'd dragged himself into. All he knew was that letting her go wasn't an option anymore. They moved through the tunnels like shadows, though he was certain his footsteps sounded like someone banging on pots and pans. Leora kept glancing back at him with that look, half disbelief, half exasperation, that he had begun to think was her default expression whenever he spoke, which, unfortunately for her, was often. "You're too loud," she whispered. "Yeah, well, stealth isn't exactly my strong suit. I once tried to sneak past a dog and ended up in the hospital for 3 stitches. True story." Her ears twitched, catching sounds far beyond his range. She motioned for silence. He obeyed briefly, until they stopped at a broken maintenance hatch. She pressed her palm to the metal. Strange, glowing lines flared under her skin, seeping into the hatch like living circuitry. The locks clicked open. "Okay," he muttered. "I don't know if that was magic or tech, but either way, 10 out of 10. Do my front door next." "It is not magic," she said, pulling the hatch aside. "It is resonance." "Resonance, huh? Sounds like the name of a band. Please tell me you were in a band. Alien rock opera? Cosmic jazz?" She shook her head, though he swore the corner of her mouth almost curved upward. They slipped through the hatch into a larger chamber, filled with machinery, so ancient it might have been mistaken for art. Rusted turbines loomed in the dark, and pipes dripped with mineral crust. "This was once your power grid," she murmured, examining the walls. "Now it is dead." "Like my social life," he said. "Perfect place to hang out." Before she could scold him, a low vibration rippled through the floor. He froze. The hum grew louder, mechanical, approaching. He dragged her behind a turbine, just as a beam of light swept across the chamber. Drones floated in, sleek and sharp, their sensors flickering like restless eyes. She stiffened. "Trackers. Fantastic," he muttered. "Do they also deliver packages, or just bad news?" The drones fanned out, scanning. He held his breath, clutching a rusted pipe, as if it could shield them from advanced alien tech. One of the drones buzzed closer, its lens glowing. Leora raised her hand, ready to strike, but he shook his head, mouthing, "Wait." Instead, he reached into his pack, pulled out the hard ration bar, and hurled it across the chamber. It clattered noisily. The drone zipped toward the sound, scanning. Leora stared at him. "You distracted advanced trackers with food. Don't underestimate the power of bad cuisine." While the drones clustered around the noise, she pressed her hand against the turbine's control panel. Again, those luminous lines flowed from her skin into the machine. The old system coughed to life, sputtering, then released a burst of electromagnetic static. The drones jittered, their lights stuttering. One by one, they crashed to the ground, sparking. "Okay," he whispered. "Remind me never to shake your hand too hard." She pulled away, swaying slightly. He caught her elbow. "That trick cost you, didn't it?" Her jaw tightened. It always does. He wanted to ask more, but the rumble of heavier machinery echoed above them, Not drones this time, ships. He didn't need long ears to know they were running out of time. They pressed deeper into the tunnels, moving through dripping corridors and collapsed platforms. He kept talking to fill the silence, throwing out whatever nonsense came to mind. Jokes about subway ghosts, complaints about his aching shoulders, theories about how rats would eventually inherit the earth. "You never stop speaking," she said finally. "It's a defense mechanism. Silence makes me nervous. Besides, you look like you could use entertainment. And hey, laughter's good for recovery." "You are strange." "Yeah, I get that a lot. Usually right before people decide to stop hanging out with me." She studied him for a long moment, then said softly, I do not want to stop." The words caught him off guard. He fumbled for a reply, but none came. Luckily, fate, or whatever cruel director was running this mess, interrupted with a sudden metallic shriek. A ceiling panel tore open above them. More drones poured down, their lights glaring. "Great," he muttered. "Guess we're the main act tonight." Leora's eyes glowed faintly as she lifted her hands. He yanked a broken pipe from the wall, brandishing it like a sword. "All right, you take the flashy energy thing. I'll take the caveman approach. Good balance." The chamber erupted into chaos, flashes of light, the hiss of energy beams, the clang of metal. He swung his pipe wildly, managing to knock one drone into another. Sparks flew. Leora unleashed arcs of luminous force, shorting circuits with precision. When the last drone fell, smoking, he leaned on his pipe, panting. "Well," he said, "that was fun. Who needs cardio when you've got killer robots?" Leora looked pale, the glow in her veins flickering erratically. He touched her arm. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "I can manage. But they will not stop. They will keep coming." He tightened his grip on the pipe, ridiculous weapon though it was. "Then let them come. I've got more bad ration bars to throw at them. Infinite supply." For the first time, she didn't look away from him. Instead, she gave him a tired, genuine smile. And in the dark of the ruined world, it felt like the smallest, brightest victory. They found shelter in an underground chamber where the ceiling had collapsed just enough to let in faint shafts of light. It smelled of rust and wet stone, but after hours of running and fighting drones, it felt almost like a palace. He dropped his bent pipe with a clang and flopped down onto a pile of debris that might once have been a control console. "Well," he groaned, "that was the most fun I've had since my cousin convinced me to try salsa dancing. Spoiler, I dislocated my shoulder. 10 out of 10, never again." Leora lowered herself carefully onto the ground, leaning against a cracked pillar. Her skin shimmered faintly, veins glowing like threads of starlight. She pressed a hand against her side, closing her eyes. "That glow thing," he said, pointing vaguely at her torso. "It's not just a cool party trick, is it?" She opened her eyes slowly. "It is what I am. What they hated. What they feared." "Yeah, well, joke's on them. I'd kill to be able to light up like a glow stick. Great for concerts. Or, when the power goes out and you can't find the bathroom." She gave him a look that was supposed to be stern, but the corner of her lips twitched. "You would make jest of anything." "Of course," he said. "Laughter's like duct tape. Holds everything together, even when everything is falling apart." She hesitated, then uncurled her fingers from her side. The glow intensified, spreading across her arm in branching lines. The air around her vibrated faintly, like the deep hum of engines far away. He felt the hairs on his arms rise. "Okay," he said cautiously. "This is the part where you tell me that's not going to explode, right?" "It is energy," she said. "Resonance. It builds within me. If I do not release it, it consumes me." "Ah, so basically, you're a walking, talking power plant with bad side effects. Got it." He leaned back, pretending to think. "You sure you're not part toaster? Because I could really go for a piece of bread right now." That earned him an actual laugh, soft and startled, as if she hadn't expected it. The glow dimmed slightly. "You do not understand what it means," she said. "Nope," he admitted. "But I do understand what it looks like when someone's carrying more weight than they should. So maybe let me carry a little of it with you. Metaphorically, not literally. I mean, I don't think I can absorb glowing space energy, unless it works through bad coffee. She stared at him for a long time, then shook her head, as if bewildered by his stubbornness. But she didn't argue. The quiet stretched between them, broken only by the drip of water and the faint rumble above. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Tell me something," he said. "Why'd they leave you? What was so bad they decided you weren't worth saving?" She looked down, her long ears folding back slightly. "I was born with instability. My resonance does not obey their laws. It grows wild, unpredictable. They call it defect. They call me dangerous." He whistled. "So, let me get this straight. They ditched you because you had more power than they knew how to handle? That's not a defect. That's just bad management." "You do not understand my people," she said softly. "Perfection is their law. Anything less is cast aside." "Well then," he said, spreading his hands. "Screw perfection. Perfection's boring. Give me chaos. Give me someone who can short-circuit a fleet of murder drones with a glow. That's the kind of imperfection I'd bet on any day." Her eyes met his, bright and uncertain. For once, she didn't argue. The rumble above grew louder, shaking dust from the ceiling. He groaned and pushed himself up. "And here I was hoping for a nap. Guess the universe doesn't want us to rest." She rose too, steadier now, her glow fading back under her skin. "They are searching. They will not stop until they have me." "Yeah," he said, picking up his bent pipe again. "Lucky for you. I'm incredibly annoying and refuse to quit. Ask anyone who's ever played board games with me." She tilted her head. "Board games. Don't worry. I'll teach you later. Assuming we don't die horribly." The ceiling shook again. She looked up, eyes narrowing, then back at him. "If I unleash what I am, it may destroy more than them. It may destroy everything near me." He shrugged. "Then I guess I'll just have to stand really close, so you don't forget to hold back." Her mouth opened, then closed again. Whatever words, she had vanished into silence. The sound of descending engines roared closer. He grinned despite the danger, gripping his pipe like it was a legendary sword. "Round two, huh? Fine. But this time, no holding back. You show me what that so-called defect can really do." She hesitated only a moment, then nodded. The glow flared again, bright enough to cast shadows on the ruined walls. And for the first time since he found her, she didn't look abandoned. She looked ready. The sky above the ruins was split by fire as the ships descended. The air shook with the force of engines, rubble sliding down broken walls in cascades of dust. He tightened his grip on the bent pipe and muttered, "You know, I was really hoping today would be more of a stay-in-bed and pretend the world doesn't exist kind of day." Leora stood beside him, her veins lit with a steady glow now, no longer flickering with uncertainty. "They will demand my surrender." "Yeah, well, they can demand all they want. People also demand refunds from vending machines, and that never works out either." She gave him a look that almost counted as a smile. Then the lead ship landed in the shattered square above. A ramp hissed open. Figures emerged, tall, elegant, cold. Her people. Their armor gleamed in the half-light, flawless, untouched by war or ruin. They advanced like a single will, eyes fixed on her. The leader raised a hand. His voice carried like thunder. "Leora of the broken resonance, you will come with us. Your instability is a threat. You have no place among us." She flinched, but only for a moment. He nudged her shoulder lightly. "You gonna let them talk to you like that? I mean, I barely know you, and I'm offended on your behalf." Her glow brightened. She took a step forward. "You abandoned me. Left me to die." "It was mercy," the leader said. "Better to end your flaw quietly than let it spread." "Flaw," he shouted, stepping forward too, pipe raised like it mattered. "She fried a dozen of your murder drones, with a wave of her hand. That's not a flaw. That's a feature. You people wouldn't know talent if it hit you with a giant glowing light show." The soldiers shifted, weapons humming. He felt his knees weaken, but he forced a grin. "Go ahead, point your fancy toys at me. Just know if you vaporize me, she'll never stop hearing me complain, from beyond the grave. Eternal haunting, deluxe package." Leora's laugh was soft but defiant. The glow surged through her body, no longer chaotic, but whole, like she had finally stopped fighting herself. The leader stepped back, uncertain. "You see me as defect," she said, voice steady. "But this resonance is mine. It does not destroy me. It makes me more." The ground shook as her power expanded, light spilling across the ruins. The soldiers raised their weapons, but she lifted her hand, and the energy rippled outward, bending beams, shorting systems, tearing the weapons from their grip. The leader stumbled, armor sparking. He watched with wide eyes, pipe forgotten at his side. "Remind me never to make you angry." "Like ever. I'll do the dishes without being asked, I swear." Her glow dimmed slightly, enough to keep the ruins from collapsing, but her voice was unyielding. "I will not return with you. I am no longer yours to discard." The leader struggled to rise, but his soldiers were already retreating, ships powering up in panic. The sky lit as they lifted away, broken by the force they could not contain. Within moments, the square was empty except for rubble, silence, and the two of them. He let out a long breath and sank onto a chunk of stone. Well, that was anticlimactic. I was expecting at least one of them to give a dramatic villain monologue. Maybe throw in some lightning. Amateurs. Leora lowered herself beside him, her glow fading back into her veins. For the first time, she looked at peace. "It is over." "Over," he said. "Nah. This is just the part where we figure out what's next. Because unless you've got a spaceship hidden somewhere, I'm thinking we're about to set some kind of long-distance walking record." She tilted her head. "And if I did have a ship, then I'd politely request first-class seating and a steady supply of snacks. But really, I'd go anywhere, so long as you're there to mock me when I trip over things." She studied him, and then her hand brushed his, tentative, warm. "You saved me. Not because you had to, because no one else would." "Yeah, well," he said, squeezing her fingers gently. "Turns out saving you saved me too. Guess we're both stuck with each other now. Terrible luck." Her laugh rang like chimes through the ruins. They rose together, two figures against the wreckage of war, one glowing with a power once called defect, the other armed with nothing but stubbornness and jokes. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, neither of them faced it alone. And in the quiet after the storm, he grinned and said, "So, about those board games I promised to teach you. Rule number 1, never trust me with Monopoly. I take it way too seriously." Her eyes shone with starlight as she replied, "Then I look forward to defeating you." He laughed, and the ruins felt less like an ending and more like the beginning of something new. The end.